Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Studio 58A here at the Jamaica Information Service, our discussion program coming to you live on Facebook. I'm your host, Vaughn Davis. Thank you to everyone joining us online wherever you are around the world. We really do appreciate it. And as you watch, remember to send in your questions and comments so we can put them to our guest. And like how we have your attention, do us the same favor we always ask. Share this video with a friend or 2 or 5,000 so we can have a very lively discussion. Now, old age. If we're lucky, we'll all get there. Well, as a matter of fact, with studies indicating more and more Jamaicans are living well into their 80s and 90s, it's quite likely that plenty of us will get there. And when we do, we'd all like the satisfaction of knowing that we'll still be able to live fulfilling lives. And a key part of ensuring that this happens is dependent on the actions we take now when we are young and sprightly. Here today to help us dig into the kind of preparations we need to start making for our golden years is someone eminently qualified to do so. She's Professor of Public Health and Aging and former, I believe, chairperson of the National Council for Senior Citizens, Professor Denise Eldemire Shearer. Welcome, Prof. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Now, we all want to get there, as I just said. And so let's begin by talking about some of the things that we should all start to keep in mind and start to think about as we think about old age or retirement or things like that, making our golden years the best that we can have. What are some of the things we should begin to keep in mind?
One of the first things, you said we all want to get there. Many of us are, or I'm there now, so I'm cool. But many people are afraid.
No.
And I think one of the first things that you have to do before you take the step you're identifying as so critical, think it through. Are you comfortable with it? What is it that you're afraid of? You need to identify what you're afraid of about old age. A lot of young people are afraid of money.
Definitely, sure.
But there are just as many afraid of disability,
infirmity, like blindness.
And most importantly, being dependent. And dependence is not only financial, it is physical as well, the fear of it. So once you identify what you're afraid of, then you can get information about each of those so you can target them. But I think one of the most important is we know that with old age comes more illness because you have lived longer, not because you got old.
Right.
If you smoke for 25 years versus smoking for 40 years, if you're overweight for 20 years versus 40 years. So let's not blame old age.
Habits.
It's habits, which means that you can identify what you are at risk of. Find out what happened with your parents, your siblings, that sort of thing. And then you can target. What are you going to work at? Are you going to work at the exercise? Are you going to work at the obesity? Is it that you have to be screened for high blood pressure and diabetes and that you're going to take your tablets and not just stop them? So it's really about getting information. If loneliness is what bothers you, and when I've done 2 studies, 1989, 2012, among 60 and over. In both studies, loneliness comes out as the number one problem.
Loneliness.
Not health.
Not even money.
Not money. Loneliness. As you get older, children go away, leave the nest. You mentioned your daughters. I am sure there are times that your mother wants to talk, but you have to do something with the children called homework, etc.
Right. Life itself just gets in the way.
Life gets in the way. It's not that you'd love her any less, but you're also now trying to raise a family. By the way, you're called a sandwich generation. You're in the middle. The children are the bread, and the old people are the other piece of bread. You're right in the middle.
Right. Okay.
Right. So there's that kind of loss. And I'm stressing that because a lot of loss is not in fact death. You know, people will say, oh, but you have 4 children. All my 4 children might have a life. I'm not their life, no.
Some may have migrated, some might be wherever. And so.
Right. Then, of course, there is the ill health and there's the financial thing. And yes, you lose your friends. As you get to 70, 75, you lose your friends, you lose your spouses. And whether the spouse is through court or not. The significant others.
Right.
Right. So the thing is, and then of course there's retirement. Okay? You're Vaughn Davis, JIS.
Right.
When you retire, who are you?
Citizen A. at home.
But your identity at the moment, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you have an identity.
Right.
So it's all about those adjustments. I mean, being fine to say I'm grandma or I'm grandpa.
So if you were in one of those high-profile, high-powered positions back in the day, and suddenly you find yourself at home with your feet up, not without the first thing in the world to do, you might start getting a little out of sorts because of it.
So, and a lot of people don't think of that. They think of the work, the money, the pension, which they have to. I'm not negating that. I'm just saying there are other things to think about. So you make sure you have one or two friends that you keep. You make a little extra effort. All of us need at least one or two. And you notice I'm not saying 10.
Yeah. Course.
I'm saying one or two.
10, but yeah.
Right. So a couple of friends, women do a lot better at this because they get into church.
Yeah.
And you have your church sister and you're on this committee and you're on that committee. I thank the Lord every day for church, not just because of the Lord, but because it makes my work looking after older people much easier. Because my first question when I know you're lonely, depressed is, do you go to church? And then you can get those bonds. You can even get sharing of house. So it's about ensuring friendships, your social network. So those are the kind of things.
And one of the things I probably didn't touch on it, but is setting your house in order, your will and testament, your affairs, because when parents drop out, a lot of the times, a lot of conflict that was hidden under the surface just comes right up to the fore, because there was no instructions left as to how things should have happened. Critical,
and you want those discussions before you reach the point of the will. So you want those discussions when the older person themselves can be involved in them. Now, we don't like to bring it up because if you want to talk about death and all of that, then it's dead left, you're worrying, no.
Right.
When I brought this subject up with my parents, I said, no, I just need to know what you want. So that when I am the one making the decisions,
at least some consideration,
I will know what you want. And we worked it out. Look, not all parents can live with all children, We love each other, we may not like each other. So, and then if you and I are siblings, we need to have an agreement before the crisis. You are going to do what? I am going to do what? So that will and preparation has a much broader scope, and it's critical to have it.
All right, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Just some food for thought to begin with. Make sure that you think about things like your will, your testament. Make sure you think about friendship. You might not even think about it at this age. Just having someone to talk to regularly, as she said, loneliness. I mean, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Loneliness is a big deal. You know what I mean? So things to think about. Now, Professor Shearer, I wanted to ask you, when you look at Jamaica itself, taking into consideration both private and public facilities and so on, how good or how capable is it as an older person in Jamaica to have your needs met, I suppose, beginning with medical and to a lesser extent some of the other things, but just as a snapshot, what does it look like in Jamaica? Is the country the kind of place it's okay to grow old in?
It's a mixed bag.
Okay.
It's definitely a mixed bag. We have made strides. And one thing that has struck me over the years of doing this work, it's fortunately still a non-political topic. This is one area that has not become part of the political football, thank God. So you will find that we started with a National Council for Senior Citizens, started as a desk. And this is where we must really, when I go to international meetings, everybody says, you really had a desk back in the 60s? Mr. Siaga put a desk in then community development. Winston Jones came along and we formed the National Council in 76, and that has grown. So the fact that you have a government advocacy agency and that we actually have a policy, And that's why I say it's a mixed bag. I got asked last night about this. Yes, we have a policy. It still needs some teeth.
Exactly.
So it now needs the laws. So we've made baby steps. But that's a good example. How many other developing countries had a policy in 1999?
I guarantee not many.
Exactly. So, yes, we don't want to say everything is good, but let us celebrate our baby steps because we build on them.
Right.
Health over the years has begun to recognize the importance of the health of older people. So we've had NIS has a health card, the government pensioners have a health card, there is JADEP where the drugs are, there is NHF. We're back now to my mixed bag. So I think we're beginning, and the Ministry of Health at the moment is currently looking at the primary care for older people. How can we strengthen it? What do we need to do? Recognizing they still need prevention. It's not just care. If I have diabetes, you want to prevent me going blind.
Right, exactly.
So, yes, for you, it's to prevent diabetes. For me, it's to prevent...
Yeah, right. Minimize,
right. So there is a role for prevention. And that's something the ministry is looking at. We have not yet made much stride in community care of older people.
Okay.
Healthcare.
I know you have the poor relief officers who come in and give a look in and so on, and even church person, but I mean, naturally,
that's not healthcare.
Right.
That's not healthcare. I was struck when we did the Mona Aging and Wellness Center, when we did some work for the ministry on the homeless and the persons in hospitals. The picture has changed from when I was a medical student.
How so?
When I was a medical student, the people that were abandoned often had mental health issues, etc. More than 50% of the abandoned older people in the 2015-16 had a chronic disease with a problem. So they were diabetics with amputations, they were strokes that can't move. And the members of the family could not manage them at home. So that's when I say community care. I'm meaning looking at what services can we put in place. And for me, this is not just government. This is church, government, and private. This is all of us thinking about it.
Even the communities themselves creating some kind, like you have a neighborhood watch, some kind of facility in place that they can look in on the older people.
There is a very good study at university, Dr. Karen Gordon. She's a physiotherapist. And she did her thesis on training family members to do this post-stroke rehabilitation. Now, most of us are afraid.
Of course.
So we put them in bed. That's not what you need to do. You need to walk them. Right. But I need some reassurance on some training before I go and walk somebody.
Of course, that's a medical issue. You might be a little bit, if you're afraid to, the person's practically a baby again. So handling them requires a lot of care and consideration. I might just interject 1 second. We have a message online from Chris Brown. He says, I love in capital letters. I love this lady. She's my regular practitioner. Haven't seen her in years, though. I wonder if she still practices by Shortwood Medical Center. So just look in the camera and talk to Chris son.
I'm not practicing at Shortwood. I'm now across the road at Wedcombe. Right. Same area, walking distance. But yes, I'm still practicing.
Right, Chris, thanks for your comment. If you have any questions for Prof, just send them in and answer, because I'm sure, she's anxious to hear back from you as well. Come on, keep the link. Now, I want to ask you, having established that, things are it's a mixed bag and things are a little up and down, I might just go straight to the hot button issue, which is the one that became topical. It became topical recently because of an unfortunate story where a woman was found to be really neglected. I almost hesitate to share the details of it, but let's just do it for the sake of transparency, that a woman was found at a nursing home, was it, and her daughter saw her with maggots in her mouth.
Which meant her teeth hadn't been cleaned.
Exactly, which means that she had not been receiving any kind of care. And of course, it mushroomed into a whole issue in terms of oversight and regulation and so on. So, Prof, what are some of the key takeaways from that that experience, and what should we be, as a society, be taking away from that and putting in place personally, collectively, to make sure things like this don't happen again?
And we've actually touched on a couple of them, like making the preparations, doing and I'm going to go to the topical issue because it's an important one. But before we get there, is your house user-friendly for somebody who is older? Are there rails in the bathroom? How do the doors open and shut? So you start right there. An older person with a knee problem or something like that needs a rail for one step. One step. Older people with arthritis, and you're buying food for them and that sort of thing, you have to make sure they can manage the opener, or you open things and put it in. Now, and that's why I said the community care is going to be so important. The nursing home issue also is an issue of definition. A nursing home, by definition, is one that is intended or to be used for the reception of and providing of nursing for persons, not only older persons, suffering from sickness, injury, or infirmity. Most of the homes that we have in Jamaica are not nursing homes.
Right.
Because we only have 10% of our older people falling into this category.
Okay.
What we do have, by virtue of migration, by virtue of frailty, remember, as you get older, you don't have quite the balance, and we haven't quite brought into doing enough exercises to maintain that balance. You lose muscle mass. This is just once you get over 80.
Right.
So we have an issue of frailty. We have an issue of migration. That there are 78% of Jamaica's older people own the house they live in. Most younger people don't want their old person in a house by themselves.
Of course, definitely.
Right. Can I tell you, most of us want to stay there, even if it is by ourselves.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be one of the ones that's going to give a lot of trouble.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna.
Not taking me out of there.
No,
Exactly.
No. I'm saying your children are taking you out of there.
See what I mean?
Them taking
See?
you out, trust me.
So the thing is that a lot of these places that we are calling nursing homes are not nursing homes. They are homes for the elderly.
Like golden age homes, things
They
like
are
that.
called, and they are actually regulated. There was the Nursing Home Act is 1934, and this one was done in the 80s. Sorry, I can't remember the date on it, but it was later than when it was recognized that you want to foster independence, you want to allow people. So these homes assume, and by definition, means that the older person can look after themselves.
Okay.
So it is assumed that they can do their own brushing of their teeth. Now, it may well be, I don't know the particulars, I don't know the home, I don't know the person. So it's about, has the person had a stroke while there? Have they deteriorated? And then, but the community care facility does not have to provide those services.
Right.
But and this is again part of the mixed bag, because obviously a nursing home is not cheap.
Of course.
It's not cheap.
Right. You would
And most
expect
people
that,
can't
right.
afford it. So you come, and a lot of the persons come here, they visit, find that the older person can't manage on their own, they find a home to match their pocket. And people are in a catch-22. Do I leave my mother or my father alone in a house where they can fall down, anything can happen to them, or do I put them where I can afford? So that's why I said we still have to go back to looking to community services.
Because it seems like a natural flip side, I think, is that perhaps you could maybe hire somebody to come and look in on them at the house, but instead of sending them to a facility, perhaps hire a professional who can come in and give a look in on them for 8 hours a day, or, well, I suppose maybe 8 hours might not be enough depending on the state that the person is in. Maybe they might need to be some proper hospital treatment, so to speak.
The definition, just first, because I found it now, is a facility, this is the home for seniors, a facility where the operator, not the nurse, provides boarding with or without food service. So it's a boarding. The homes are boarding.
So
it's shelter.
Right. It's just room and shelter, room and board.
So these are things that we need to bear in mind. And the only thing that I'm very definite about, because I do recognize, I recognize it because I had a conversation with a lady, would have been 10, 15 years ago, who had left her mother in KPH. She was part of this sandwich generation of young people. She was also an informal commercial higgler who had managed to get a house in Portmore. But she still traveled. The mother had a stroke. And she looked at me and she said, "Doc, you think I don't care?" She says, "I have children doing," it was common entrance. "I travel. When I leave her at KPH, she gets 3 meals a day, you know." So that's the choice people are faced with. Do I leave her alone in a house where nobody to change her, nobody to bathe her for 2 to 3 days?
Of course.
So these are some of the harsh realities of making decisions.
All right, I'm just checking online because we have some questions coming in from Sharon, Forever Young Lawrence Guess. All right, thank you, Sharon, for your comments. Really appreciate them. Now, she's saying, can healthcare be a primary focus, especially for the elderly in all parishes?
Has to be.
All right. Sharon, it has to be.
Has to be because realistically. Now, can it be?
Yeah.
It's going to be challenging because, and I'm glad she raised it because I want to make the point. Especially for the elderly, 60% of our men live in rural parishes. They're not in towns. But think how far they are separated by hills. But we can, look, we're an incredible people, you know. I had a patient in St. Anne and they had set up a system. She lived on a hill. She wanted to live alone. They had a system of bells. And there were some young people that really helped her. And all she did was ring the bell. And of course, because you're on top of the hill, that once they heard the bell,
somebody comes.
Somebody comes. So we're gonna. The answer to you is we have to. The traditional. I don't think we'll ever be able to afford it in the traditional sense, and therefore we can be creative.
Right, it just requires the community as a whole, people as a whole, to get creative and make something. She has another question, or another comment, it seems. My understanding is that the hospitals locally are not maintained, nor do they even have doctors and nurses, so we do have a lot to focus on. It obviously takes a team, and that's what we need in Jamaica.
The answer to that is yes. And yet, only 10 or I think it's between 10 and 15% of older people need a hospital. If we do what we need to do properly at the primary care level, then we can prevent a lot of older people going to hospital. Medicine's changing, and I'm not negating in any way the comment about the need for the hospitals, but think about it. Again, going back 40 years. When you did any form of surgery, you stayed in hospital 7 days, 10 days. You're now out the next day. We have laser, we have different things. The whole thinking, you used to have to lie down and recover. Now you must get up and walk.
Exactly.
Pain or no pain. So the whole face of medicine's changing. And we just need to ensure that our older people don't get left behind.
All right, so we're here discussing elder care in Jamaica with Professor Denise Eldemire Shearer. It's a very interesting topic, things that coming out that never quite thought of, to be honest. Learning a lot today. And if you have your questions and comments, please send them in so we can have more discussion, because this is a really, really multifaceted topic.
It is.
I shift that now to look at data from your institute, the Mona Agency of Mona Aging and Wellness Center at UA. Recent stats show that there are about 320,000 persons in the over 60 on the island. And there's a continuing decline in the 20 to 60 age group. This has significant implications for our country in a number of areas. Now, let's address some of those. Workforce. What does it mean? We're having persons getting older and we're having a decline in the quote-unquote able-bodied population. So what does that translate to?
Two things. The workforce itself is going to have to look at the aging worker. And now when I talk about the aging worker, I'm talking 40. I'm not talking old age. But we're going to have to be more accommodating of the aging worker. It means retraining. We're going to have to rethink daycare. A lot of places will offer daycare for young people. We're going to have to rethink that. Because if you want your worker to be able to come to work and they have an older person at home, the 50-year-old who might well have a 75, what happens if the caregiver doesn't show up? That person doesn't come to work if they care.
Right.
So we're going to have to think through that. We're going to have to think through the retraining in particular is what is one of the big ticket items for the aging workforce. Because a lot of those current 45 and over don't have the same level of training. And I'm not saying education.
Right.
I'm saying training. They aren't as computer savvy. They aren't as tech savvy. So it's about retraining of the workforce. And then down the road, we're going to have to look at the retirement age. We're going to have no choice.
Right. If people are living longer, it stands to reason that it don't make any sense for a person to retire when you have 20, 30 years left of living to do.
And the arguments over the years have been, but you have to make way for the younger generation. And any older person that you speak to will support that. We actually put it in one of our questionnaires. No, don't change retirement age because we want to make way for the young people. So it's not about taking jobs from younger people. It's ensuring that the jobs get done. And therefore, I really believe that we're going to have to look at flexi retirement.
Elaborate.
There are areas, teaching is one, plus academics, that there are some things that you have to have a couple years experience to be able to teach it well. Why are we sending home teachers? Why are we sending home university staff at 65? Can we replace all of them? Now, once you do that, and here I'm going to get in trouble with my colleagues, but I don't care. You're going to have to rethink the whole retirement because you can't send me home with a pension, bring me back on a post-retirement, and then pay me as well. So when I say rethink retirement age, I'm talking about delaying retirement so that the institution, and I'm talking about schools here. I'm not talking only tertiary institutions.
Right.
I can't expect to get my lump sum and my whatnot and still get a salary, which is what happens. So we're going to have to rethink how we rethink that. Trade unions clearly are going to have to get on board with some of this rethinking. The same for nurses. A lot of those professions that we're short of. You're sending home people at 60 and 65. Well, government is now moving upwards. But you're sending home these people, and then there's nobody in the hospitals while the young ones go abroad.
Right.
So
definitely.
I think it needs a whole rethinking and shift.
All right.
Farmers work till what?
Till then drop in the field
Thank
and
you.
that's it.
Thank you. So there are, and then it means about mentorship programs. It also means that we're going to have to look at our voluntary sector. There's a role for older people, mentoring, volunteering. Back I am to my loneliness. Not everything in old age is about pay and money.
That's true.
It's about feeling useful.
Right.
It's
definitely.
about feeling useful, somebody needing you, somebody wanting you, and you being able to give back.
Right. Let's talk about health services, knowing fully well now that you're going to have a cohort of people who are in an advanced age, and with that age, with being in that age range brings with itself several predictable health challenges, so to speak, but then know that we're experiencing a growth in this particular cohort. It may very well mean that we have to expand the range of services or create more facilities, maybe more secondary healthcare facilities where persons can go across the island, so they don't necessarily have to go to the hospital or go to these private care facilities, more public facilities that cater to specific age-related illnesses, that kind of thing. Yes,
and I think we need to strengthen prevention. One good thing, the 89 study had 78% well, physically, mentally. Now, well, when you're 70 and 80 is not well for when you're 30 and 40.
Of course.
Because I could be well and using a walker, but I'm well because I'm going from point A to point. So let us understand that. And that raises the supply of those kind of things for older people, incontinent pads. So the services that we need to think about and the affordability of the services. Because can I keep my older post-stroke relative at home if I have a supply of Incal pads, diapers, etc., the foods, the various liquid food. So that's one area. Physiotherapy. Somebody called my office this morning and said, how can they get a hearing aid? I don't know. They're $200,000-$300,000.
Oh, wow, okay.
Right? Now, giving me a hearing aid is going to allow me to continue to interact with you, and I'm not going to get lonely and things. That's an area of health services that we need to think about. The walkers. I keep getting asked, where can I get a bed?
A special kind of bed for a person
with a stroke and whatnot.
Oh, okay. Wow,
And they
yes.
only want it for a couple of weeks. So this is the sort of thing. Then you want to think of prevention. So 89, it was 78%. The good news in 2012, that's gone up to 92. So we older people are quite well.
Yeah.
But yes, we need physiotherapy, we need exercises, we need water therapy, and we need community activities.
Right, specialized activities,
Yes.
specialized training, persons to work with you and
Yes.
make sure you're able to be well.
That's right.
According to your standard of wellness.
And we need a mindset change among healthcare workers that treating older people is not just about curing a disease. It's about keeping them well. The
Right.
focus of healthcare for the over 60s function.
I think that change in mindset might very well be necessary because there are many young persons who be like, I mean, you
Him
know,
old.
him soon dead.
That's right.
So we ask ourselves a care, you know what I mean? And
But
that's
yes.
a horrible way of, because at this age, if you're 60, 70, you still think you have maybe 15 good years, at the very least.
And our demographic statistics show us that we do. So you can't.
It's not even a thought anymore,
No,
it's fact.
It's going to be him soon dead is going to take 20 to 30 years to dead.
Right. Lisa Brown Campbell, she says, wish I could hear this, but my phone is acting up. Elder care agencies, where can we find answers to questions and resources really needed in all parishes? Anything to offer that where she can maybe get some ideas where she can look for that kind of care specialized information?
The ideas I can answer her, the resources, if she means money and things I can't.
I mean in terms of where to look, or where to
National
get
Council
started.
for Senior Citizens has a parish office in every parish, and some are more focused on health than others. Each parish officer focuses on their own interests. Some are on education, etc. But the starting point is the National Council office in your area, in your parish,
All right.
and they can direct you to.
All right, see that, Lisa. So if you are able to hear, or if you're able to watch back the video on our YouTube channel, because we will be re-uploading it there as well, you can always check out the National Council for Senior Citizens and get some more help, more information. And recreation. Strangely enough, people think that once you get old, you just want to cock up your foot, wrap yourself, wear bed slippers, wrap yourself in a robe or something like that, and watch the world go by on your veranda while cussing and just being miserable and scoldish. Nothing could be farther from the truth.
Nothing
right?
could be further from the truth. Haven't you watched some of these videos from the National Council activities with everybody dancing and kicking foot and then recreation is critical. Also, through recreation and different activities, our older people can share a lot of old-time Jamaica, There's a situation in Montego Bay where our old Miss Vi is 95, just left hospital, doing okay. She was doing Dukono and blue draws for somebody she met the other day and is there, and they hadn't a clue what all this was about. So there's all of that old time. I mean, they do
She's
Christmas
just a wealth of information.
and sharing it and teaching you. I mean, and a lot of younger people like you are going back to this so that your children know what you had as a child.
Right. Definitely.
So I think recreation is critical, and that I think has to come from the community, the church groups. If you look at any of the senior citizen activities, they're full. And when I was chairman of council, all they wanted was bus fare,
Just to be able to get there.
Right. And then, but look at some of their craft. Look at some of the crochet. Look at some of their embroidery. I used to buy tablecloths in Kmart and things when I traveled, the $7 ones. Suppose you see my tablecloths with my embroidery. And I would give it to them and buy the things. And listen to me, you'd never know it's a $7 tablecloth. Beautiful flowers. And by the way, I have to look closely because I don't know the back different from the front. Because it's so neat.
All right. Fantastic.
Baby clothes. They can make baby clothes,
I mean, I would imagine, if you can bring them in, or any MSME or a small business person can bring them in, have already, which brings me to my next point, which is job opportunities. Like I said, you have a ready pool of persons who don't have the distractions of young children, who don't have the distractions of, they might have health challenges that they might be grappling with here and there, but there are many who are in varying states of health relative to what is good health, of course. And they provide a ready pool of workers who can do things and help and so on. Don't just weighing on that for me.
That one I'm torn on.
Okay.
And the answer is that yes, it's needed and it's important. I'm torn because I am conscious of youth unemployment.
Ah, okay.
I am, it
is an issue.
It's an issue, and the older people that I have spoken to weigh in there. So it has to be job opportunities that does not take away a job from a youngster.
Fair enough. Can't complain about that. Now, as we kind of bring things down, ageism. We touched on it briefly. Do you think it's how real is it, and what do you think we can do about it? It's kind of, we keep knocking the mic a little bit, but
I keep knocking. Yeah, I do use my hands.
Which
Sorry.
is fine, absolutely fine. But I mean, to what extent do you think ageism is a major challenge?
Major.
Or let me not even go up as
think
far
it's
as
a
major.
challenge. I think it's a challenge, and I think it's in pockets. I think there are pockets of it, and I think it's people that's had bad experiences. 1999, and that you have to forgive those of us that are old. We go back to in the years. One of the things that struck me, we did some community across the island workshops. A lot of persons wanted to have the conversation that we are having. They had older people, they didn't know how to cope with the problems, and they became afraid of their own aging process and of old people in general, because the older person that they were involved with 24/7 was struggling, was having a problem, and they felt inadequate. And you find that they will then become a bit ageist. So I think that, and again, I think we've made strides here. We would not be having this conversation 20 years ago.
Probably not.
Look at your age.
Probably
and
not.
Look at
We'd
mine.
just be like, oh,
I'm probably
person.
old enough to be a grandmother.
Maybe.
So the thing is that I really think media has played a critical role in this. And I say that without batting an eyelid. And it's about getting information out to people. And it's about, while we recognize we have problems such as what happened in the nursing home, we're not sweeping the problems under the table.
Right.
We have people who need hearing aids that are too expensive for them. But then what are the positive sides as well? So that we provide both sides of the picture and that we show older people that are coping with life. Look at a Nelson Mandela.
Indeed, of course, definitely.
Look at a Nelson Mandela.
He was still pretty fairly active well into
Till
his
the last 2 or
golden
3
ages.
years
Right.
of his life. We have our role models here. Look at P.J. Patterson.
Of course.
I mean, we don't have to go far to find
Even though, I mean, I'm sure we would have seen the video of Eddie Siaga
dancing, right.
And
He's
on stage.
89 coming up.
Right.
So I
All
think
but no coal.
no. So it's and every community has one. Every community has one. I made mention of Miss Vi. Miss Vi looked after my father before she looked after us.
Oh, wow.
Miss Vi had
amazing.
surgery the other day and she has gone home. 95. So it's about having a positive attitude and it's about getting information out there.
All right. Just checking again with those watching online. Says thank you to Pat Umet. I don't know if I said that properly, but you're watching all the way from Canada. Really appreciate that. Thank you for your comments. Dion Green, who says older folks have a reservoir of knowledge that the younger ones need to take in. I have lived on my granny's utterances. We need to take care of them as they sacrificed much for us to reach where we are today. Thank you, Dion. I'm sure many would appreciate that.
And do what she has done. She said she lived on the utterances. How often do we just go and sit down there and say, tell us a story of yesteryear? Now, yes, they might tell you the same story a couple of times, but just think about just going and saying, tell me what it was like. Many of us don't know Jamaica of the 30s and
That's
the 40s. They know it.
It's not like we have a lot of movies or things like that can tell us, right?
I learned that in Gilbert. Gilbert, I had never been, because I'm born 52, so and I wasn't here for Charlie, so I had never been through a hurricane. And it was incredible in speaking to, as we went out to look for the older people. And they would all tell us, Chaman, we come back from before, you just have to rebuild. And they had that resilience. I mean, everybody roof off. And they're saying, but,
it's a simple thing.
Exactly.
Right.
So you have life. You have life. So it's about going to them to find out how did they cope? Because they coped in a much harder Jamaica.
They did indeed.
And look at them today.
Right. Yeah, our old persons they're stronger than they look. Right? Don't believe
That's
that.
right.
So the last thing I'm going to ask you to touch on before we can move to wrap is the topic of elder abuse and abandonment. How do we treat with this? It's an issue that happens, obviously. I mean, as the example we referenced earlier, and it may not even be in these institutions. It's in the homes themselves. Persons
in the homes too.
Families, young persons who might be taking their parents' pension money because the parents aren't old enough to fight back or do anything about it, and just not making them eat. And how do we, as a country, look at that? How do we treat with it? What are some of the things that we can do?
That's one of our mixed bags that we haven't done enough. Financial abuse is, in fact, from where I sit, the biggest. They take away the pension checks. Some of them take away the houses. So I think it's about creating awareness. One of the big problems with elder abuse is older people themselves are afraid to report it. Okay. Put yourself in their position. I'm 80 years old. I'm dependent on this niece or nephew or grandson, granddaughter to give me food. How do I report them to the police?
Right, of course.
And yes, they're hitting me. And a lot of it is frustration. We will, now that we are in the final stages of the aging demographic, we're going to have memory loss. We're going to have confusion. There's going to be about 6 to 8%. And younger people are intolerant of that. And they're intolerant for two reasons. Impatient, right. They're afraid. This is not supposed to happen to grandma or grandpa. They're still supposed to be that striking person that can tell. So part of it's fear, sadness, and not know what to do. And you feel totally incompetent because you can't reverse it. So it's those kind of things. We also have to empower older people. Most of them don't have accounts. The current generation of 80 and over, this is going to change with time. And you can appoint some people. But I do think we need some sort of public system, whether an ombudsman or something within the National Council, because right now, the only way to deal with elder abuse is through the police and the court. And first world countries have a mediation process before. Older people are not going to take their relative to court. Forget it.
Okay.
They'll make the report, and the minute they have to sign the police statement, goodbye.
All right. As you said, they have to live with that person. They have to take care of them and so on.
And they don't want to shame. You have to go to court and sue your grandson or your granddaughter.
What take care of who have in them house probably who provide
we
food.
We are proud people,
Yeah.
So I'm not taking my family member to court. You see it with spousal abuse. It's not just elder abuse.
And I guess, I remember you making a statement once not so long ago, is that people tend to believe that it's only the poor people, those who are really poor and can't manage, who have a relative who might be really old and needs specialized care and they just can't afford to do it. And so those are the quote-unquote wicked people who abandon their relatives on the street side. You were saying that it happens in the uptown areas too.
It happens in the uptown areas. I mean, you hear of people being dead in a house for 2 or 3 days because nobody checked on them because they own the house, etc. Dead from natural causes, not the thing. I have often said that those that are the poorest are actually the better off because the community is going to look after them. And the networking, the yards situation. I'm one of these that don't want to see yards totally thrown out as we get developed, so that we can share the commonality of raising the families, etc. So no, it's across the spectrum, because I could be in a house uptown, and it's no longer just uptown, it's anywhere. and be able to look after myself. But then nature comes in, my pension runs out. How do I pay the light bill? How do I pay the water bill? So no, it's across the spectrum.
All right, let me just wrap up with a couple of questions comments that we're seeing online. One from Candice Christian. Thank you, Candice, for your comment. She says, any words of advice for young folk who have grandparents with dementia? Coping or lack thereof can sometimes lead to ageist reactions.
Which is what we were just saying.
Right.
My comment is get as much information as you can online, because you can go online and talk to somebody. Talk to, if you're in an area where you have a public health nurse or something, and of course you're a pastor. Most importantly, do not be afraid to express, and do not be angry with yourself if you have what you will call a weak moment. I'll call it a natural moment, and express your frustration. Forgive yourself, but you have to get it out of your system.
Okay.
So it's a process.
All right. And Sharon, Forever Young Lawrence, guess again, she's saying this is so true, happening even with parents, I suppose, referring to elder abuse and the things like that they experience, all a person's experience. And Michael Ellis, thank you, Michael, thank you for your comment, saying the police can assist you with mediation. I'm sure they are a ready resource as well. So if you definitely want to have some kind of recourse, if you find yourself experiencing this problem of elder abuse, naturally, if you can, police makes sense. Okay, I think we've covered a wide cross-section of things. I think there's much food for thought in here, a lot of things that people can go back, listen through and understand. I thank you again, Professor Shearer, for coming through. We really do appreciate it. I personally learned a whole lot from
I
this
thank
discussion.
you as a youngster for dedicating the segment to getting that information out.
Of course.
This is how we fight ageism. We empower people with knowledge.
Exactly. Like you said, I should be in a couple of years, hopefully I'll be there and some other young person will be here.
That's right.
And then things will change that way. All right. Now, it's time for us to wrap. Thank you to everyone who tuned into our discussion, all of you who sent in your questions and your comments, especially though. And if you sent in a question and we didn't get the chance to reach it, not to worry. We will be going through afterwards and answering questions. But as I see out of the corner of my eye, I see a comment from Michael Ellis. As a part of the police